Be sure to watch all the way to the end of the video for a special surprise, or just click the timestamp in the comments if you're an impatient loser. What's going on, guys, and welcome to Highly and Alph Gaming. I'm your host, Alph, and since I always like to be very relevant, today we're reviewing Luigi's Mansion 3. Before we get into all this, my only experience with Luigi's Mansion prior to the Luigi's Mansion 3 was playing about an hour or so of the first game on my cousin's GameCube a few years ago, so don't expect me to draw any comparisons to it or Dark Moon. I'll be judging Luigi's Mansion 3 as a standalone game for the review, naturally because that's all I can do. Also, I will be spoiling a bit of the game in this review, just not the ending, so don't watch this if you still care about that. Not much else to say though, so let's just get started with the review. Just like literally every other review for this game will tell you, Luigi's Mansion 3 has really gorgeous visuals. Unfortunately, some of the beautiful texturing might get lost from my capturing, rendering, and uploading of the footage, but regardless of what you're seeing, just know that Luigi's Mansion 3 looks absolutely incredible. The texturing on everything, especially Luigi's clothing, looks shockingly realistic, and the dim, creepy lighting is incredibly well done and adds a phenomenal atmosphere to the game. Luigi's Mansion 3 is by far the best looking Mario game ever made, and from a purely technical standpoint, it might be the best looking Nintendo game. Personally, I think I still prefer the more artistic style of games like Breath of the Wild, but if realism is the only factor, Luigi's Mansion 3 definitely wins the art style award. You might think that the game wouldn't run too well with all this complex lighting and texturing, but in my experience, the frame rate almost never drops. I've never been good at noticing if the graphics scale down to avoid frame drops, but I can at least say that I personally never noticed major dips in the resolution either. Even with its awesome visuals, Luigi's Mansion runs really well, and that's not even to mention all the little objects constantly flying around, but we'll get to those later. Aside from the technical prowess of Luigi's Mansion 3, the whole game has a really funny, charming feel to it. Everything's haunted, but it's also really cartoony, which just makes a lot of the jokes even funnier. From the items in each room, to the facial expressions of the normal ghosts, to the full-fledged personalities of some of the bosses, Luigi's Mansion 3 is full of charm and style. I'll go into more detail about the charming stuff later. For now, let's move on to another relatively surface-level thing, the story. Once again, there will be some spoilers, but I won't say exactly what happens at the end if that's a deal-breaker for you. Anyway, Luigi's Mansion 3 starts off with Mario, Luigi, Peach, and some Toads heading off for a vacation in this big fancy hotel. When they get there, everyone except Luigi is promptly captured and turned into paintings, and the hotel becomes all haunted and wonky. The two main people behind this are of course King Boo, but also his subordinate, Helen Gravely, who happens to own the hotel. King Boo and Helen tell you what's happening, then they go up to the top of the hotel where they send ghosts and stuff after you throughout the game. Most of the game is spent trying to get to the top of the hotel, and you do this by finding buttons to fix the elevator, which is of course missing most of its buttons at the start. Each time you find a button, you get to go to a new floor, not necessarily in order, but like most of them are in order. Like I said, I won't spoil the ending, but once you do get to the top floor, the rest of the game from there is one of the coolest sequences, and the story caps off with a sort of interesting twist at the end. There are occasional bits of story throughout the game, but there's not a ton to the story, and I'm okay with that. The story is compelling enough the few times it comes up, and most floors almost have a story of their own to tell if you pay close enough attention. Another thing I should mention is that Professor Egad gives Luigi the means to progress in Luigi's Mansion 3, and you periodically check in with him in his lab as you play. The visuals, performance, and story are all great, but if you know me, you know the bulk of this review is going to be about level design. I'm mostly going to talk about level design, but first let's talk about controls real quick. As with almost any game, you move with the left joystick, but new to me at least is how you use the right stick. You use the right stick to aim your flashlight and the Poltergust G00, and the game pretty much always has a fixed camera angle as a result. Usually when a game has you move with one stick and aim with the other, it's a first-person game, so the aiming is also moving the camera, but this works fine here too. It felt really weird to me at first, but I think that's just because I'd never used any control scheme like it before. I got used to it after the first couple levels, and after that, the aiming and movement worked really well with each other. The gameplay style never really demands camera movement that it doesn't do for you, so these controls work well in my opinion. But wait, what's this Poltergust G00 thing I was talking about? I'm glad you asked, because most of the gameplay happens through this really cool vacuum cleaner. Most of the time, when you're just walking around, the Poltergust is a flashlight that always shines where you point it, but hold down the right trigger and a tornado of suction can be pointed in any direction instead. This suction has a few uses, but it's mostly to suck up ghosts. If you hold down the left trigger, you'll blow out air instead. If you click both triggers at the same time, Luigi will jump up and a little air explosion will go off around him. If you use the L button, you can aim and shoot out a plunger to stick onto and move or break stuff. If you hold the X button, a magic-y rainbow flashlight beam can reveal hidden objects, and most notably, when you click the right stick in, a lookalike called Luigi comes out to help. You can switch between Luigi and Luigi on a whim, and Luigi functions the same as Luigi, except Luigi is vulnerable to water, and he can walk through grates and fences and such. The Poltergust G00 obviously has a lot of features, and surprisingly enough, most if not all of these features are actually used quite a bit. It's not like in a lot of games where you get a bunch of features and never use them. You actually need all of them throughout the course of the game to solve puzzles. Except one really cool thing that you get like 2/3 of the way through that you only use once, but like, that's not important. But I'm getting ahead of myself. We'll get to puzzles in a minute. Right now I'm gonna talk about the combat. Like I said, the main reason Luigi has the Poltergust is to soak Oh my gosh, I'm gonna say soak like 30 times. Like I said, the main reason Luigi has the Poltergust is to suck up ghosts, and I must say that these fights are very satisfying. Of course you suck the ghosts up into the vacuum, but even with the most basic ghosts, you need to open them up to the suction with a burst of your flashlight, or strobulb as the kids say. Many ghosts, especially the bosses and mini-bosses, require you to do an extra step before flashing them with the strobulb. This could be something as simple as knocking whatever they're holding out of their hand with an air jump, or something as complicated as making them swallow Luigi to reveal their ribcage. No, I'm not making that up. And on the subject of bosses, there's a boss at the end of each floor, and if I'm being honest, they can be kind of hit or miss. While none of them are very challenging once you figure out how to beat them, some of them have kind of convoluted ways in which you take them down. Some of them are really clever and fun, sure, but a lot of them just had weird mechanics to them that kind of made me mad whenever I figured them out. There were a couple of them where I actually had to look up how to beat them because the only way to open them up for attacks was something that could only be done if I was explicitly coaxing them into doing so. Maybe I'm just dumb, that's honestly pretty likely, but regardless I wasn't a huge fan of the bosses. I found many of them annoying, but most of them were still charming and funny, and the boss on floor 8 might actually be my favorite part of the game just because of how unique and hilarious he is. Okay, that was quite a tangent, but what happens after you've flashed a ghost with the strobulb? Of course you suck them up, but most ghosts have a health number that goes down as you pull them in. Pull them in correctly, however, and you'll be prompted to press A. When you do this, you can actually whip whatever ghosts you have around for an extra 20 damage every time you slam them against the ground, and if you hit a ghost with another ghost, they both take damage. Most of the gameplay in Luigi's Mansion is pretty slow and methodical, but these semi-fast melee attacks are a really fun change of pace. All you have to do to beat a ghost is get its health down to 0, but the combination of opening it up, flashing it, and sucking it into the Poltergust can be a really rewarding, often complex gameplay feature. The combat is really solid, and it's probably my favorite part of the game. But surprise, surprise, there's more than combat! Yes, while Luigi's Mansion 3 does have a fair amount of ghost sucking, the majority of my playtime at least was spent working my way through the floors by solving puzzles, and I've gotta say, another one of the most fun parts of Luigi's Mansion 3 was just how many fun little things there were to do on the way to the top. I semi-rushed through the game for the sake of making this review, but basically everywhere you go in Luigi's Mansion 3, there's some fun little puzzle or secret treasure chest or just general stash of money. And when I say everywhere, I really do mean that. Every room is totally packed with objects and furniture, and you can interact with almost all of them in some way, netting you some extra cash in most cases. You can buy a few things from Professor Egad with the money, but really it just serves to give you some extra fun thing to do while you play. Each floor also has a set of 5 special gems to collect, and these could be fun to hunt down, usually with a slightly more involved puzzle. It's not incredibly necessary, but the sheer quantity of hidden money and secrets still stands as a testament to just how much love the developers put into making this giant hotel. Alright, now all the little side treasures are great, but none of that money is going to get you an elevator button and progress the game. Of course you actually get the buttons by beating the boss of each floor, but most of the game is spent getting to those bosses. Usually what happens is you'll enter a new floor, get some kind of tease about who the boss is and what they're doing, then go through the level to chase after them, solving most of the game's major puzzles along the way. This might sound like it would get tedious after a whole 15 floors, but honestly, Luigi's Mansion 3 does a lot to change things up from floor to floor. Aside from a few exceptions, you really just have the abilities I mentioned previously to work with throughout the game, but many floors will add some twist to one of the abilities you already have. Sometimes the twist will stick around for other levels, but sometimes you just have to leave it behind. I always found it exciting to figure out when and how to use each mechanic, and the fact that only some gimmicks come up again makes each level feel a bit more special. Now, as much as I love the puzzle variety, I will say that a disappointing number of the game's challenges weren't very enjoyable. I must again say that I'm kinda dumb to preface this, but it felt to me like a lot of the puzzles were a bit convoluted or half-baked. Some of the levels would introduce really crazy new mechanics that would often have me scratching my head for over 30 minutes, and while challenging puzzles can often be very rewarding, some of them just made me mad. Whenever there was a legitimately good new mechanic, I usually liked those, but if you stare at a puzzle for too long, Professor Egad automatically comes to give you a hint. This isn't a bad thing in and of itself, but sometimes he'd spoil a really good puzzle just as I was on the cusp of figuring it out, which always bugged me. And sometimes the solution was obvious to the point of being really hard to figure out, and I always got frustrated when I finally guessed what to do. Some triggers for solving a puzzle take way longer than they should to show that something is happening, so I'd sometimes spend 20 minutes trying to solve a puzzle that I'd already solved and the game just didn't let me because I didn't hold still for long enough. Of course, some of them were actually just really hard puzzles, but I won't dwell on those here too much because I'm not great at solving puzzles to begin with. Then some of the puzzles were only hard because it took me a while to get used to all the various tools I had at my disposal, like I'd forget about the magic flashlight beam or something. Of course I got used to having all this stuff over time, so maybe it's not really a problem. Once again, I'm kinda dumb. Although, side note, this isn't really a problem, I just thought it was funny, but there's this desert level later in the game, and I was going around this giant field of sand looking for a way to get in this pyramid, and I couldn't figure out what to do. Then after like 20 minutes, I realized I just had to stand next to this pharaoh statue long enough for it to give me the prompt to press X and move its arm, and I was like, really? I spent 20 minutes trying to figure out that I needed to press X? Okay, that's the second unnecessary tangent of this video, but that's about it for puzzles. A lot of them are clever, they make you use the mechanics in cool ways, but some of them are frustratingly obscure, whether by being too easy or complex. The last thing I'll mention is the game's pacing, because if you ask me, the structure is a little wonky. Some of the floors are on the shorter side, while some take much longer, and I don't know how I feel about that. On the one hand, the variation makes the gameplay more interesting, but on the other hand, it makes the game harder to stop and start playing on a whim. Like, of course you can put the Switch to sleep whenever you want, but I never wanted to stop playing except for right after I got a button to the next floor. It can take like an hour to figure out some of the harder floors for the first time, and the often frustrating puzzle design made this an uncomfortable experience for me. And this is just an anecdotal thing, but after one of the longest, most complicated levels, right when I got the button and was thinking, geez, that's finally over, this dumb purple cat came along and made me chase it around for like 20 minutes, and it made me real mad. Maybe some people found this to be fun, but the cat comes around a couple times throughout the game, and I never enjoyed it. Yet again, that's not significant enough to be worth mentioning though, so I'll just shut up now. Not yet, let's wrap up the review! Overall, Luigi's Mansion 3 is a beautifully crafted game with awesome visuals, tons of cool mechanics, and boatloads of extra treasure and money to find along the way. The experience was bogged down a bit by a few frustrating puzzles and bosses, but it's still an incredibly well-crafted game with a lot to love. Slower puzzle games like this aren't exactly my cup of tea, but Luigi's Mansion 3 has enough great qualities for me to give it a 9 out of 10. And since I only enjoyed the game a medium amount, I naturally spent the better part of a week creating this. Oh, oh yeah, my man Luigi, you've really seen a lot. You beat a mansion, then 5 more, and all of it for what? You tried to get some rest on a family vacation, but what's in store? I'll tell you more. Luigi's Mansion 3, fun for you and for me. Every day it's the game we're gonna play. It's what I wanna see. Oh, poor Luigi, you wonderful green-clad man. You just wanted to have some fun, but your friends got taken by a ghost again. So you grab your Poltergust, thinking I'll do what I must. You sucked the ghosts up, then you went up with your polter pup. You got the gold buttons and went up in the Vader. King Boo attacks, we gotta get him back. Luigi's Mansion 3, fun for you and for me. Every day it's the game we're gonna play. It's what I wanna see. Well, you saved your friends and got some cash along the way, but you've still been traumatized at night, you lie awake. Well, I think I know just what this problem's gonna take. Yes, the thing that this song needs is an instrumental break. Luigi's Mansion 3, fun for you and for me. Every day it's the game we're gonna play. It's what I wanna see. Luigi's Mansion 3, fun for you and for me. Every day it's the game we're gonna play. It's what I wanna see.